The state of morale and motivation in many companies is giving managers cause for concern. Has psychology anything to add and contribute to getting out of this? Today, Richard Kwiatkowski is in the studio and we're going to ask a psychologist what he thinks. Now, Richard, let's look at this situation from a morale, from a motivation point of view. How do you see it?
Well, it's a difficult time and it's an anxiety-provoking time for a lot of managers and a lot of people in organisations, particularly if the downturn has hit their sector or hit their organisation. So there's a lot of stuff going on in people across the organisation, and as leadership is distributed across organisations more, so more people are affected.
So they're affected by it. What's your diagnosis from a psychologist's perspective?
If you're feeling anxious yourself, it's very difficult to provide some of the leadership that people want. And it's very important in difficult times to keep employees engaged, to keep people understanding what the organisation is about, what you're doing, what the direction is. And you really can't over-communicate. And particularly for people who are senior in the organisation, who know about the strategy, who know about the plans, who have an idea about the way forward, sometimes they forget that other people don't know, they're not privy to some of those things. And so actually providing that direction, providing a sense of integrity and openness so that we're in this together, some sense of solidarity, is very important.
Some people would say, look, we're in the middle of a recession, it's a crisis, we've all got to shoulder this.
Well, to some extent that's right. The evidence is that people acquire some meaning from work. People will identify themselves with the sort of jobs they do, the professions they're in, and even the organisations that they belong to. And if someone is proud to work for an organisation, and that's a powerful brand, say, it makes a difference to how engaged they are with that organisation. But again, it means that the loss of that identity can be more frightening.
So the worry is people are saying budgets are reduced, the future looks uncertain, maybe there's redundancies on the horizon, and a manager's saying, well, look, I understand all these things, I know people are anxious, but what do you expect me to do about it? Now, I think, you've suggested one area, which is communication. Is there anything else that you can suggest from your perspective?
People like to be engaged at work, they like to be challenged, they like to be rewarded. And in times when you can't reward people financially, you can't give bonuses and so forth with a lot of organisations, just acknowledging their contribution, treating them with respect, helping them to know that what they're doing matters is extremely helpful. So on one hand, that's one side of it. The other side of it is that a lot of managers will need to try to contain some of that anxiety to stop it from being debilitating, while at the same time acknowledging that it's actually going on. And so for people in organisations, peer support becomes important. Somewhere to talk about those things, somewhere to get a perspective, to think about what's really going on. And in the case of a worst case scenario, to plan that such that people aren't damaged too much. Obviously giving bad news or making redundancies is difficult for anybody.
Is there any way that you can put some energy back into an organisation if you're a psychologist, if you're seeing things, you've got that background and insight, what could you do?
I think it's very much about the organisation working together, and actually there's quite a bit of evidence that if there's an external enemy or something is threatening a group of people, that group will combine together with a feeling of solidarity, with a feeling of energy, and will work hard in order to stave off that threat. And if as a manager you're able to do that, to get that sense of we're in this together rather than an us and them, that can very much help people to feel as though they are engaged, that their contribution is valued, and there is some hope there, rather than the sort of learned helplessness of listening to the headlines or media views, because we know that actually some organisations continue to do quite well. Some sectors are more badly hit than others. And yes, there is a recession and that is a reality. But nevertheless, on the whole, most people still have some way of making a living and a livelihood. And most organisations are still functioning, albeit in a difficult context. And so that contact with reality is also important.
Richard, thank you.
Thank you, Steve.